I'm Scott Ellis and welcome to The Guide Show. Joining me today is Louise Rugendijk and we're looking at the SBS documentary The President versus the Pirates, which despite the name that sounds like a bad B-grade action movie is actually a really interesting look at life in Somalia.
It is a really interesting look at life in Somalia. It's about President Farole, who was a Somali refugee. He lived in Melbourne for 20 years and in 2009 he decided to go back to his homeland and become president, as you do. Anyway, he's got quite a few problems to deal with. There's massive piracy issues there, plus food. There's no economy, really. But despite it sort of having a fairly bleak outlook, the documentary is fascinating and it gives you a really good look at the issues behind piracy. It's not just, I don't know, Jack Sparrow and
I've
pirate
got a spare eye
flags.
patch, off I go.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about sort of overfishing and things like that. But anyway, let's take a look.
I was on duty that fateful day. Around 7:45, we were captured.
The 2-3 pirates with gun on us.
I was still wondering, are my people killed or what? What is happening to the rest of the crew?
They made us suffer so much.
These sailors from Ghana are from a ship called the Iceberg, which was hijacked off Puntland at the beginning of Farole's presidency in early 2009.
What I really liked about this was, as you said before, I mean, it gives you the background on the piracy. I mean, because I just sort of thought it was guys sort of saying, oh, look, there's all these tankers going past and trawlers. Let's go out and just kidnap everyone and make some money. But they explain what happened. You know, there was a civil war going on. All of a sudden, these overseas tankers saw their opportunity because no one was watching the coast. They came in and they just swept through and took all of the fishermen's livelihood. And so all of a sudden, they were like, okay, what are we going to do? And they explained that, you know, these guys can go out and take $5 million. One guy who, you know, like living on a subsistence wage is suddenly handed $138,000 US. And like, but they then explain what happens with that because, you know.
Well, it's the old pirating thing. Nothing, you know, They fall victim to the usual traps of drugs, guns and ladies.
Fast cars brought in from the Middle East.
Exactly.
They're in the middle of Somalia. What do you need? You need a gold-plated Mercedes immediately.
Anyway, it's really interesting because it is also these people who are living in fishing villages and that is their livelihood. And they're going up against these massive European trawlers that have got anti-aircraft weapons, you know, shooting against them in their little fishing boats. I mean, what are you going to do but maybe turn to piracy? It's not the answer,
no.
But it's maybe a way to sort of take back what was yours. But the thing is too, Farole himself is such a really interesting and charismatic guy because he realised that, you know, if he was going to take back some control of his country, you know, he sort of pumped up his sort of own army, really, and they did it. They rescued hostages themselves. They didn't worry about the French and their sort of SAS-type planes coming in. They took a little fishing boat out and rescued their own hostages, which is, you know, pretty good.
It's really good too because it tells a lot of the Somalian refugee experience because they talk to a lot of people in Australia. And as you said before, there's virtually no economy. So a lot of people there are living entirely on what their families can send them. They interview all these guys who are going to, like, you know, the money office in Melbourne and sending money back. And he says, you know, what I just sent my family will pay for all of their food, their electricity, even the phone that I used to call her for the next month until I send something else, because there's nothing else there.
No, the whole country has a budget of $40 million a year.
Which somebody wisely points out is probably less than what, you know, most European football clubs spend on their players.
Yeah, $40 million budget plus, and 70% of that is spent on sort of defence. So, you know, $30 million left to do what? You know, there's nothing. Their main exports are like camel and goat meat. And
even that doesn't appear to be too organised. They showed the docks at one stage and it's just some guy walking along with a cardboard box on his shoulder.
That's it.
So look, it does put a lot into perspective, particularly, you know, the refugees, why they would want to get out, but it also puts into perspective why the pirates wanted to take it up. But it also explains, even better, why Farole wanted to go back there and change everything, and he is. And it ends on a really hopeful note, I mean, because they're gearing up towards their first election. And it's funny because the stuff that we take for granted, and they actually include some interviews with Australians where these people are saying, oh, I'm sick of political parties, and then they go back to Somalia where these people are saying, you know, what is a political party? I don't even understand. What's an election? What is democracy? Is it you? And they're being serious. They just have no idea. And the picture of freedom that they come up with to demonstrate, you know, this is what we're all working towards, is girls playing football on the beach. Because they've never ever been able to do this before, and we just look at that and go, yeah, I kind of get it. I understand more. Like, I understand more about what's going on in that area now than I ever did before, just because I watched something that I thought, you know, from the makers of Sharknado, The President versus the Pirates.
I know, it really shows how much we take for granted our own democracy in our own country. And, you know, some people legitimately get excited about politics because it does have the chance to change lives in a country like Somalia. So it was a great Christmas surprise, maybe. Yeah. It's a good sort of thing to look at and think, oh yeah, you know, maybe we shouldn't take for granted what we've got here. Some people are actually fighting very hard for democracy. So.
Well, that's the President versus the Pirates. We'll see you next time.